In Arcane Season 1, Vi is introduced as a tough and protective orphan who acts as the oldest sister to a group of foster siblings, including her biological sister, Powder. She takes on a leadership role and often shields Powder from the consequences of her mistake. After Powder accidentally causes an explosion Piltover, the enforcers retaliate by cracking down on the Undercity. Vander, Vi's foster father and a respective leader, refuses to fight back, fearing that a war will lead to more death and suffering for his people. His decision to allow Piltover bullying without retaliation caused him to appear weak. At his lowest point, Silco, once thought to be dead at Vander's hands, re-emerges and seizing the opportunity, kidnapping Vander and taking control. Vi, along with Milo and Clagger, tries to rescue him, but Powder unintentionally causes another explosion while trying to help, resulting in the deaths of their friends and Vander. In a moment of grief, Vi lashes out and disowns Powder, only to be taken away by Marcus before she can make things right. After spending years in prison, Vi is released under the Caitlyn's watch as they investigate a string of violent crimes linked to Zaun. While Vi is committed to freeing Zaun from Silco's control and ending the suffering he has created, her other motivation is to find her sister Powder and mend their broken bond. However, she slowly discovers that Powder has transformed into Jinx, this unstable and deadly force behind the chaos in Piltover. Despite multiple characters warning Vi that the sister she knew is gone, Vi clings to the hope that she can still reach her. This denial is shattered when Jinx blows up a building filled with Piltover's leaders, marking the point of no return. As for Vi's lore in League of Legends, a lot of her lore is kept vague and hidden. Where she came from, what caused her disappearance, how she ended up joining the Enforcers, and what her relationship with Jinx really is. Most of the lore focuses on her growing up the streets of Zaun, how she learned how to fight, the connections she made with the local gangs, and her desire to help her people. Even though the lore is very different from the story told in Arcane, you can still see some of the ideas were used as blueprints for building Vi's character in the show. For example, her mentor in the lore was a bar owner who tried to keep her temper in check, something we now know as Vander in Arcane. What caused her mysterious disappearance was caused by Marcus taking her to prison, and her rivalry with Jinx is now shown as a tragic conflict between two sisters who were once close. So the expectations of Season 2 was to continue Vi's character development, especially when getting the badge. It was one of the biggest challenges the show had to accomplish. Vi has a hatred against Enforcers since they took her parents' life. So it's gonna be interesting how the show was gonna tell this story. The theory I had been thinking over the years was that Vi, with the connection of Caitlyn, would start to see the whole other side of Piltover. That being that there are people just like her who were born on a different side of the river. They could further expand this being that not just Kate lost someone personal, a lot of the Enforcers had died throughout Jinx's rampage. Who could say that many of their children ended up joining the Enforcers for a way to avenge their parents? They could go as far and create a character that parallels Vi, where they have a hatred for Zaun, specifically Jinx, who killed their father on the bridge. It's just pretty much the theme standing here, I realize. It's fleshing out the line what Caitlyn had said, where it's all a misunderstanding. Here, Vi is in a good position, having connections to important people in Piltover. She could rebuild the relationship between two cities by teaching the Enforcers not to be too mean towards Zaun. That's the main story I was hoping to see. Vi fighting for Zaun, but also honoring Vander's legacy by trying to solve the conflict in a more diplomatic way, with a mix of tragedy. How before Vi was fighting for Powder to have a better life, now she's fighting against Jinx to protect the cities. However, this never happens. Vi throughout Season 2 spent crying, then more crying, and even more crying. Her character development has been halted for Kate and Jinx being for some odd reason demoted to more of a side support character. She's just there to do whatever the other characters want, having no real decision for herself, which is an absolutely massive downgrade how she used to be. So, let's dive into how Arcane Season 2 failed Vi's character. The first sign that something is off with Vi's character shows up after the funeral for Caitlyn's mother. In a private moment, Vi tells Caitlyn that she's going to find Jinx, but then adds that she needs Caitlyn to have Jace fix the gauntlets. This line stands out as odd. If Vi had said something like, "Help me convince Jace to fix the gauntlets," it would have made more sense. That version keeps Vi independent, while showing that she values Caitlyn's support, especially given that Vi and Jace ended on bad terms. after their disagreement about continuing the fight against Silco. Even then, Vi has always been the kind of person to act first and figure out the rest later. She doesn't ask for permission, she just does what needs to be done. For example, as a child, she went on a dangerous heist without telling Vander. Another one, she fought Silco forces without the council approval, only Jace backed her for a brief time. And even after they split, she went straight to fight Savika alone. So her saying I need you to have Jace fix him feels out of character. It makes her seem more submissive or relying on others in a way that doesn't fit Vi's character. Now I understand it's a small line, but it's an early sign that something isn't quite right with how her character is being handled. And this was proven to me later when Kaylin didn't support her until she joined up with the Enforcers, giving her a badge. Now, I've already talked about this, how inappropriate this moment was in Kaylin's video. Vi's reaction to the badge made sense. She has a deep-rooted hatred for the Enforcers after what happened to her parents. What doesn't make sense is what comes afterwards. Instead of going back to Zaun, or at least trying to get the gauntlets fixed herself, she's just sat in the alley, moping in the rain and drinking herself into a stupor. This is not Vi here. Vi in the first season wouldn't have given up so easily here, waiting around doing nothing or allowing Kaylin to move things forward. This comes across Vi being more passive and lost rather than headstrong and driven. The reason Vi is still in Piltover is clearly because the writers wanted her to attend the ceremony so she could win a Zaun attack in the event. That moment was used as a turning point that convinced her to join the Enforcers to strike back at Zaun. There are so many problems with this setup, so let's break this down. The ceremony attack has been one of the worst plot devices I've seen done in a television show. It forces multiple characters to act completely out of character. Jace, for instance, would have known the attack was a personal one, that the real goal was to kill him. Kaylin should have been suspicious about how the attackers snuck in. And Vi, she has a deep connection to Zaun. There's no way she wouldn't have gone into the streets to investigate what really happened. She knows the people there and wouldn't take it too much time to figure out it was an act of vengeance against Jace. The fact that she just takes the attack at face value and agrees to help the Enforcers retaliate is baffling. What makes it worse is that they completely skipped over the moment Vi actually accepts the badge. That was a huge emotional step for her character, one loaded with trauma and history, and yet we don't see it. It's brushed off screen and pushed forward by a poorly written and contrived event. That's not just disappointing, it's a wasted opportunity for a meaningful development. One of the main things I was excited to see in Season 2 of Arcane was how Vi would come to wear the badge, and what would that mean for her character. But this whole part of the story is skipped over. The writers seem to care more about the destination than the journey. Seeing her wear the badge upsets me, but what frustrates me even more what comes after that. The plan for them to send a small strike team to Zaun using smog to clear the streets and knock out the King Parent thugs was absurd. Just hearing that plan, Vi would have thrown the badge at Kaylin. This is something she will never agree to. Gas is not something that can be easily controlled. There's a reason why it's considered as a war crime. It spreads without control and drops into places where it can easily harm innocent people. It lingers in the air, affecting anyone nearby. The fact that the writers tried to frame this as a more peaceful option shows nothing but idiocy and incompetence. Using gas in a densely populated area like Zaun, an undercity with a well-known history of respiratory and air quality issues, would have led to civilians' deaths. The very thing they supposedly wanted to avoid. The show already established how smog causes severe health problems like Victor, who's slowly dying while having difficulty in walking or breathing. Seeing Vi go along with this plan just to stay close to Kaylin is not only uncharacteristic, it's a betrayal of everything she stands for. It's a clear case of character assassination. And unfortunately, this downward spiral only continues when she finally confronts Jinx. Vi is willing to do things that goes against her character to finally stop her sister, telling Kaylin the moment she sees her sister take the shot. However, after the fight, Vi hesitates in fully caving in her skull, the reason being a kid getting in the way. This child gave enough reason for Vi to stop Kaylin from shooting due to the fear she might have missed. The argument between the two gave enough time for Savika to pull a lever to release air pushing them out of the cave, now unable to reach Jinx because of this slab of rock. Why would this child stop Vi from punching Jinx? Just slap the gun out of her hands and throw the child at the side. It wouldn't take that much effort. Not only that, but stopping Kate out of fear she might have missed? No. As far as Vi has seen, Kate never missed. An example is when Savika was about to kill Vi. Kate from a far distance managed to shoot Savika's arm, disabling it. Even this scene proves that Kate is still an amazing shot, shooting the pistol off the child's hand. Why wouldn't Vi pick her up with massive gauntlets so then Kate would shoot Jinx in the head? So why all of this hesitation? Because the writers didn't want Jinx to die. It's painfully obvious. They made up a weak excuse to stall Vi and Caitlyn. Even if the entrance is blocked, Vi's gauntlets were built to break through that. In League of Legends lore, Vi rescued a bunch of miners with an older, less powerful version of the gauntlets. She absolutely would have broken through, but the writers needed her to fail. So instead, we get Vi being shot out by Caitlyn, hit in the gut with a rifle, and collapse into tears. And it gets worse. In Act 2, after the time skip, Zaun is clearly suffering. Echo's people are left without leadership because he disappeared. What is Vi doing? Is she confronting Caitlyn about leading a campaign of vengeance that's hurting innocent people? Is she helping take care of Zaun and the Firelights? No, she's in the fighting pits, throwing punches for cash and drinking herself into oblivion, going full emo. It's pathetic. This is completely disrespectful to Vi's character. She would never been this selfish. She loved her city. She was strong after her parents died. She stepped up and led her friends. She survived years in prison, being beaten and abused. And now she falls apart because of this breakup? That is not the Vi we know. That's not the character they built. It's weak writing that throws away everything that made this character interesting. As if we didn't hit rock bottom with Vi's character, she somehow gets convinced by Jinx of all people to help her find a way to heal Vander after being turned into a monster. The rest of Act 2 is then wasted on Vi rebuilding her relationship with Jinx. This entire arc is rushed and completely dismantles everything Season 1 spent time building up. Vi's journey in Season 1 was about realizing that people change, that the sister she once knew is gone, and yet, even with that painful truth, she still held on to hope. That hope was finally shattered when she witnessed Jinx intentionally firing a rocket at the council building. Before that, most of Jinx's destruction has been accidental or chaotic, but this moment was different, deliberate and calculated. This would have been the final straw. So this idea of Vi trying to reconnect in Season 2 makes zero sense, especially with everything that happened. She destroys the Vi relationship with Caitlyn, sent her spiraling into self-destruction, and now shows up at her apartment talking nonsense about this monster being Vander. Vi would have killed her on the spot. There is nothing recognizable about Warwick that would suggest he was once her father figure. No visible features, no humanity left. And yet the writers want us to believe that Vi will drop everything and go on some quest to help Jinx fix him. It's insulting, not only to Vi's intelligence, but to everything her character stood for. Believe it or not, it's not the final nail in the coffin that completely destroys what little dignity this character had. After the failed attempt to cure Vander, which of course resulted in no real consequences, Jinx falls into a dangerous emotional spiral. She's clearly on the edge, mentally and emotionally broken, and everything about her body language and behavior screams that she's already given up on life. Vi is fully aware of this. When she embraces Jinx in a prison cell, it's framed as like a moment of healing, but Jinx uses it to escape, locking Vi inside. What follows is one of the most infuriating moments in the series. Despite being known a terrorist responsible for massive destruction, Jinx walks out of the building unhindered. Apparently, Caitlyn made sure there was no guards or resistance in her path, enabling her to escape. And while Jinx is alone, breaking down, preparing to end everything, Vi is shown having sex with Caitlyn. It's not romantic, it's not an emotional payoff, it's disturbing. While her sister is off in the middle of what's clearly a breakdown, trying to end her life, Vi chooses the exact moment to hook up with Caitlyn. It completely derails everything we've been told about Vi's priorities. The entire second arc is about rebuilding her bond with Jinx, and is then thrown away for a forced and horribly timed ship moment. This isn't just out of character, it's disrespectful to Vi, to Jinx, to the audience. Instead of confronting her sister's pain, or even reacting with urgency, Vi abandons to get sticky with Kate. And for what? A cheap, shallow fan service? I can't help but think that the writers clearly did not like Vi. But the moment that truly made me believe the writers outright dislikes Vi is in episode 7. This episode gives us an alternate timeline where somehow everything works out. World peace is achieved. Everyone is happy. Why? Because Vi dies. I'm not joking. That's the message of the episode. In this what-if scenario, Vi dies during the original heist when Powder accidentally drops the Arcane Orb. Apparently, her death is what leads to a perfect world peace scenario, according to this logic, because Vi is gone, the Arcane was never created, and Vander and Silco rekindle their brotherhood. What absolute nonsense am I watching? First of all, this utopia would never happen. The development of Arcane would still have gone forward. Jace and Victor were already working on it illegally when it was banned. Powder would have completely cast out by the rest of the crew. Mado already hated her and blamed her for mistakes. If Vi died because of her, Clagger and the others would have turned on her too. That would have left Powder completely alone, mentally shattered, and likely in an even worse place that she ended up in. And the idea of Silk and Vander being friends again? No, that will never happen. Vi's death would never have united them. It would have shattered Vander, with his position already growing weaker. Losing his adopted daughter would have crushed him. Silco would have pounced on that vulnerability and taken over faster than ever. The tension for Piltover and Zahn would have remained the same. None of it makes sense. It's just a lazy, absurd attempt to frame Vi's death as a way to achieve peace, when everything we know about the characters and world would have said the opposite. Arcane Season 2 slowly dismantled everything that made Vi who she was. Whatever strength, heart, or integrity her character had left was completely killed off. And for what? To prop up other characters' stories? Vi went from being a central protagonist with a commanding presence, someone who drove the narrative with raw emotion and purpose, now became a background figure stripped of her agency, relevance, and even dignity, all in service of romantic subplots and empty drama. She was once the soul of the show, a symbol of grit and loyalty. Now she reduced to nothing more than a stepping stone for other arcs and ships. This wasn't just a misstep, it was a full-blown betrayal of her character. The writing is so disconnected from who Vi is, it's hard to believe that the people behind this season even watched the first season. At this point, the writers seriously need to reconsider their career choices. What they did to Vi wasn't just bad storytelling, it was shameful. So thanks for watching, and bye.